But yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit about English for IT, particularly the English for IT exam. And I'll talk about what it is, why it's important, who it's for, and then we'll take a quick look at what it looks like. So just before we begin, in addition to the exam, we also have a complete course that will take you from the lower intermediate to the upper intermediate level of English. Within the context of IT, we have practice tests, we have printable PDFs for instructors and teachers, basically everything you need to prepare for this exam. So first of all, what is the English for IT exam? Well, English for IT is a selected response English language exam that tests a candidate's ability to communicate in English at the upper intermediate level. So if you are familiar with the Common European Framework reference, which is the most popular reference in Europe, that goes from beginner A1 up to C2, which is the advanced level. So A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. So we are in the upper intermediate level B2. And in the United States, they use the Global Scale of English devised by Pearson, and that's the range 59 to 75. So why did we choose this range? Well, our research showed that this level is the lowest level possible where a person who takes this exam, who passes it, can realistically work in an English-speaking environment. So at the lower level B1, yeah, they can speak a little bit of English, but they can't work in English. This is the lowest level where they can actually effectively work. So basically, if you pass this exam, then you're ready to work in English. So English for IT is an English for specific purposes exam. So if you're familiar with something like the Cambridge Advanced or the Cambridge First, these are general purpose exams. They test your general English speaking abilities. So they will include things, like what do you think of this film? What did you do at the weekend? What's your favorite food? Well, we don't care about any of that stuff. We only care about information technology. And our entire exam is focused only on the world of IT. Now, it's important to realize, though, that the English for IT exam is not an IT exam. So yes, we contain a lot of terminology, language, vocabulary from the world of information technology, but we do not test that. We only test English. So theoretically, if your English skills are good enough, even if you don't know anything about IT, you can probably still pass this exam. Now, this exam has already been accredited by the American Council on Education. What that means is that if you take this exam and you pass the exam, and then you want to go and study at a university in the United States, you will already receive university credit for your degree. So even before you begin studying, you've already begun your degree. So moving on, why choose the English for IT exam? Well, why choose any English exam? Well, 96% of conversations happening all around the world involve non-native English speakers. So for example, if you have a Spanish person and a Japanese person and they want to talk to each other, they're probably going to speak to each other in English. The same way, if you have a Russian speaker and an Arabic speaker, if they're talking to each other, well, they'll probably speak in English. Now, why English for IT specifically? 80% of the information stored in the world's computers is in English. So it's very important if you work in IT to be able to understand that 80% of information. And from an employer's perspective, there is at least a 40% English skills gap between the English skills that they require and the English language skills that the employees have. So what this means is that IT companies are looking for people who speak English, but they cannot find them. So who is this exam for then? Well, broadly speaking, we're looking at students aged 16 and over, higher education students, IT professionals early in their careers. We're looking at people who are already working in IT, software developers, network engineers, and so on, but they are maybe working locally and they want to be more international. They want to work in a multicultural environment, or even IT specialists, people who are already established in their careers, but again, they want to go to the next step and want to become more multinational. They want to work with English-speaking companies or even in English-speaking companies. And finally, non-IT employees working in the IT sector. So the first three, these are all people who either already work in IT or who want to work in IT. The last one, why would non-IT people want to take this exam? Well, the simple fact is that even if you don't work in IT, you probably work with people who do. And it's important to understand what they're saying when they're talking to you about their work. So that's why this exam is good not only for people who work in IT, but also for people who don't. All right. So let's take a closer look at what this exam looks like. So here are some statistics. The exam is 120 minutes long, 2 hours. Now, this is longer than a lot of exams. And believe me, we tried to make this exam shorter. We tried to make it 50 to 55 minutes, but it was impossible. It was just not possible to test all of the language skills in such a short time. So unfortunately, 2 hours was the shortest we could make it. The exam is 60 questions long, and that's split into 3 sections. So we have the use of English, which is grammar and vocabulary. We have listening and we have reading. And we have 4 tutorials, 1 general tutorial at the beginning, and then a tutorial before every section. So let's take a look at some of the sample questions. I took these from the practice tests. So these are not the actual exam questions, but the style of the question is exactly the same as what you'll find in the exam. So here we have a very simple multiple choice. We have a sentence and then 4 possible answers. And these are probably the easiest of all of the questions. The next one we have is a little bit more complicated. So in the previous one, we had 1 sentence. Now we have a whole paragraph, and you have to choose 2 options from the paragraph. And in this case, very often, the option that you're looking for, the information that you want to find, is in a different part of the paragraph. So here you have to understand the entire paragraph. And then the last type of question we have in the use of English section, this is a short conversation. Here we have 1 person saying, how long do you think this meeting will take? And we have the next person responding. And this is complicated because we have, if we look at the answers here, when we complete the agenda, we will definitely end the meeting. Well, that's correct English, but that's not the answer to this question. That's the answer to a different question. The same with the second one. Certainly, if we complete all the items on the agenda, that's an answer to a yes/no question. That's not this one. So in this case, it's important to understand the context of the conversation. The listening section has 2 different types of questions. Here we have a series of short listening exercises. They are around 45 to 50 seconds long, and they're either 1 person speaking or 2 people having a conversation. And you just have to listen to their conversation and decide which of these is the correct answer. The other type of listening exercise is a longer one. It's usually between 2 and 3 minutes, and it's people discussing some kind of activity or something that is happening, and they are giving their opinions on it. So now we're not looking for information, but we're looking for the opinions of these people as they talk about the information. In this case, because this is the practice test, you also have the transcript. That's the AD button, the audio description. I clicked that, and you can see there's the sample. So it's just 2 people beginning, and she said, "Hi, John, I want to discuss the global firewall policies. Would you be willing to do this now?" "Hi, Sarah. Sure, let's do it. I have a few minutes before the meeting." "Great, let's begin with the concept itself. I'd like to know what you think of it." So immediately, she's already asking him for his opinion. So this is a lot more complicated for the test takers. Then on to the final part, the reading section. There are 3 different types of question. Here we have a text and we have 2 statements, and you have to decide which statement agrees with the text. And in this case, it's also possible that neither statement agrees with the text. So the student has to decide, if I can't find this information, is that because the information is not there or because I wasn't able to find it? So you really have to know the entire text. You have to be familiar with everything in order to be able to get the answer correctly. Then the next type is a paragraph matching. We have a text that is split into 4 paragraphs, and you simply have to decide which paragraph corresponds to which statement. And finally, we have a longer reading section, which is easily the most complicated one. And we have a series of questions, usually between 4 and 6 questions. And the difficult thing about this one is that when you read the answers, very often the first impression is that, well, all of these answers are correct. But if you dig a little deeper and if you pay attention, then very soon you realize that actually only one of the answers is truly correct. So this is the exam, and other people will be talking about the courseware, so I'll hand you back to them. I would like to finish with one thing by just saying that if you remember only one thing today, just remember that in this world today, everybody needs to know English, and everybody needs to know IT English. And that's why we created this project. Thank you so much.